Hello and welcome to this video on how to save factor scores for exploratory factor analysis in the Mplus software. My name is Geiser, I'm an instructor with QuantFish, and on this channel I present weekly statistics tutorials. I usually talk about structural equation modeling, factor analysis, multi-level analysis, or latent class modeling. If this is something that interests you, then please subscribe to this channel. Also, don't forget to hit the like button and to check out the description for additional resources, including workshops that I teach for QuantFish. In this video, I want to show you how you can save factor scores for exploratory factor analysis in the Mplus software. And it turns out this is actually not as easy as it sounds, because you would think that there's a simple option where you can just simply include a save data command in an EFA and then save your factor scores. However, as we will see here, that is not the case and it's not quite so simple. So let's dive right into it and let's take a look at an example EFA syntax in the Mplus software, which I have open here. On my computer, you can see that this is an EFA for 6 variables that are chosen from 2 different psychological tests. One is the mental rotations test, which tests spatial abilities, and then there's also 4 variables related to a math test. And so I already figured out in a previous EFA that a 2-factor solution here is a good model. 1 factor for mental rotation ability and 1 factor for the math test subscales. And so now let's assume I'm in the position that I, for whatever reason, would like to save factor scores for that 2-factor EFA solution that I found in a previous analysis. So I'm specifying analysis type equals EFA 2 so that Mplus will only extract the 2-factor solution and not other solutions. And then I'm using the save data command here, and I specify that the file name is 2factors.dat. So this will be my file to which I want Mplus to save individual factor scores for that 2-factor solution, and that is done by using the subcommand save equals f scores, which means that tells Mplus what to save. And so in this case, those would be the estimated individual factor scores for whatever reason you might like to see them. So you would think that this is the way to do this. It seems obvious, but then when you hit the run button here in Mplus, then you will find that you get an error message. So Mplus will tell you that the input setup produced syntax warnings and errors, which caused Mplus to abort. Please refer to the output file for these warnings, errors, and fix the input setup accordingly. So let's click OK and see what happened. And then you get to the output window here, the output file EFA factor scores.out, and you can see that there are some error messages that say warning and save data command factor scores cannot be computed for type equals EFA. Note that factor scores are available with the use of EFA factors, ESEM. So what does that mean? Request to save F scores is ignored, and then another error message that F scores are not available when there are no latent variables. So that's really confusing. And so when you first encounter that, you think, okay, what does this mean? It's not available with EFA, but then it is via this ESEM. What is ESEM? So let me explain this to you. So Mplus will not give you factor scores with the standard EFA option here for whatever reason, but it will give you the factor scores when you specify the EFA model as an exploratory structural equation model. So an exploratory structural equation model is kind of like a hybrid between a purely exploratory analysis and a confirmatory analysis in that an ESEM already requires you to specify the number of factors, but you allow the variables to load on all factors in the same way as we do that in EFA. So unlike confirmatory structural equation modeling or CFA, confirmatory factor analysis, where we typically do not allow cross-loadings or where we only allow a few cross-loadings, in ESEM we allow all the cross loadings in the same way as we do that in EFA. And therefore, really when you specify a two-factor model with correlated factors within the ESEM framework in Mplus, it's really the same thing as specifying an EFA. And with ESEM, Mplus will allow you to save factor scores. So that's good to know in case you ever need factor scores with EFA, then you know you can't get them within the EFA options in Mplus, but you can get them within the ESEM framework. So let me show you how this works also. And so when we go to window here, I already ran this analysis as an ESEM, and so let me go straight to the output here. And so when I go up, I can show you the syntax. You can see that the syntax looks a little bit different than the syntax for EFA. So here we simply specify a model in the same way as we would with a CFA or a confirmatory structural equation model. However, we include all variables on all factors. So you can see here that I have two factors, F1 and F2, that I specified with the by statement. And then all 6 observed variables that I'm using in my factor model are listed behind the by statement. And at the end, I put this *1 in parentheses and then a semicolon. And so that tells Mplus, okay, this is an EFA really where we have 2 factors and we have these 6 variables. They have loadings on both factors. So they're all the cross loadings like there would be in an EFA. And the default is that the factors will be rotated with geomin, so an oblique rotation where the factors can be correlated. And you'll find that you get the exact same solution with the same chi-square test as you would when running this analysis as a two-factor EFA in Mplus. And now we are allowed to use the save data command and specify that we want to save the factor score. So this is the exact same command that I used in the EFA where it failed. And so now I can use this and now it'll go right through with this model. So again, this is the exact same model. It's a two-factor EFA where all the cross loadings are permitted, and we can actually verify this by looking at the output file. When we scroll down a little bit, you can see that this is a maximum likelihood factor analysis with geomin rotation. You can choose other rotation methods with a subcommand that you could include in the analysis command about rotation. The geomin is the default. And so you can see that really it's an EFA, and Mplus tells you that here, EFA factors F1 and F2. And so then we can scroll further down. You'll find that there's a chi-square test of model fit for the maximum likelihood two-factor solution. The model here fits okay. It's rejected, but the p-value is 0.05 almost, so it's not really all that bad. It's not a super amazing fit, but 2 factors seem reasonable here from a theoretical perspective. You can also see then that in the model results section, we have all variables load onto both factors. All 6 load onto F1, all 6 load onto F2, but you can see that the cross loadings of math here on the mental rotations factor F1, or that's how I would interpret it at least, they are all close to 0 and not statistically significant. So really the F1 factor is the mental rotations factor and F2 is the math factor, where you can see the math loadings are all significant here and the mental rotations loadings are not. So the cross loadings are estimated, but they're close to 0, showing you this is an EFA with a really good simple structure that is estimated here. Now, you could also get the standardized loadings, which here in this case I did not request. So those are the unstandardized factor loadings. You can use the stdyx subcommand in the output command to request standardized loadings if you want to look at those as well. Now let's check on the factor score. So where are they and where do we find them? When you scroll down in the output here, you find that there's saved data information towards the end where Mplus tells you what file it created. The file name again is twofactors.dat. So that was the newly created data file, and that file contains our 6 variables here in this order that is listed by Mplus, and then the factor scores for F1, then the standard errors for the factor scores for F1, and then the F2 factor, and then the standard errors for the F2 factor. So in this order you will find those variables, and we can check that by looking at the file, which I also have open here already. So this is the file 2factors.dat, and so you can see that the first 6 columns here in this data file represent the scores on our 6 variables. The first 2 columns are for the mental rotations test, and then the last 4, or the next 4 here, are for the math test. And then after that we have the factor scores on F1, so that would be the scores on the mental rotations factor, and then the standard error, which here is constant across people, obviously. And then we have the factor scores on F2, which is the math factor here, and then the standard error, which again is constant across individuals here, obviously. So that way you get the factor scores. Now you could use them in whatever analysis, or if you wanted to use them as person scores or something like that, you could extract them from this text file. I hope you found this video useful to learn more about exploratory factor analysis in Mplus and how it allows you to save factor scores in EFA. If you liked the video, then please subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, and don't forget to check out the description for additional resources, and I'll see you next time.